going to start our program off with, hang on, we'll let everybody get in here. I mean, all of you know me. I'm Pat. I'm now your president. So.
Wait a minute. I need to give him a standing ovation.
What's that? I'm Mike Green. If you see Mike Green on Facebook, by the way, that's me. Long story behind that. But, thank you for everybody for coming, especially members of the units, descendants of the 142nd Pennsylvania, and Chris and you guys. Thank you for you guys always supported us. We always supported each other back and forth, and you know we're right along with the 54th in anything that you guys do, and we appreciate you guys returning the favor. So, but we have some special treat today for our 25th anniversary. We are going to do a seminar, and we are going to start off. We're going to trace every battle that the 142nd served in, from their first battle at the Battle of Fredericksburg until the Battle of Five Forks.
In less than 4 years. In that order? In less than 4 years.
In less than 4 years. Okay. Yeah, we're going to try to do this in less than 4 years.
In order?
In order. We're going to do them in order. So actually, the way we're going to do this is Scott's going to start out and do Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville, and then Fran and Rick are going to do Gettysburg, and then Scott's going to come back and do.
If they'll let me.
If they'll let me. If they'll let him. He's going to do Wilderness through Cold Harbor. I'm tasked with doing the entire Petersburg campaign.
Wait a minute. Thought you were doing Cold Harbor. I'm serious on that.
What's that?
I thought you were doing
I'm picking up Cold Harbor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm picking up at Cold Harbor.
All of a sudden, there's going to be a gap, folks.
Not much happened there.
Yes, Scott stops at North Anna. Okay, so.
Wait a minute, he's not doing North Anna?
Well, no.
Hey, everybody.
Let's get started. We got 4 hours worth of crap to go through. Come on, guys. Hold all questions. No. I'm privileged today to introduce our first speaker. This is Mr. Scott Walker. Scott has been a very long-time friend of mine. He is the guy if you want to go tour the Fredericksburg battlefields. If you want to see Fredericksburg, you want to see Chancellorsville, you want to see Wilderness, you want to see Spotsylvania, and if you're willing to take resuscitative gear, North Anna, this is the guy that you want to take you. He owns Hallowed Ground Tours. He's got decades in public education, and his retirement job is taking the rest of us around and showing us his wonderful city. And I always jokingly call Scott the mayor of Fredericksburg. So we are going to start now at this time, and I will turn it over to Mr. Walker. And come on.
Thank you, Pat. Hey, everybody, and of course, each of us presenters, we got different styles, and I can't believe I drew the short straw to have everybody after lunch. Now, literally, there have been communities on the whole Atlantic seaboard, because I've talked from Salem, Massachusetts to Hilton Head, that have had issues with insomnia, but they invited me and that was cured. I'm trying to keep you awake. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to do the first two, Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville, then break, hand off to guys. I'm aware of this, it's 4 years of stuff. And I'm sure each of us is going to approach this in different levels. But here's what I want to do. First of all, I realized driving here yesterday in 2+ hours, and then many of you drove here from another hour or two, if you weren't already from here. Going to an article, I think it was Civil War Times about 1.5 years ago. Do you realize how much a day those armies travel? So 10 to 13 miles, 20 if you were on a forced march. So for me to get from back home to here would have taken a few days. We're talking about your ancestors and ancestors of all these guys who more than likely had not been more than 50 miles from home, and their grandparents before. And now, they're not just taking a pleasure trip. So, what we got is the first two, these guys came to Virginia. There was no welcome center beside the interstate highway. Probably they'd heard things about those people in Virginia, that if they captured you, they'd roast you and eat you alive. They had two heads down there, you know, all of that. But they hadn't been there. But I did extensive research, and Fredericksburg's a great place, and I found out why your guys wanted to come to Fredericksburg. That. One of my favorite places downtown, I swear, it's amazing, but there it is. In the middle of the historic district. What you got to understand, I mean, we're off the grid up here, but the Rappahannock River, and that's Fredericksburg sitting on it, is of course below the Potomac. And early in the war, by 1862, the Confederacy decided they could not control the area between the Rappahannock and the Potomac. So they basically ceded it to the Union. It would have required too many men, too much materiel. But they also, in a sense, made that line of the Rappahannock River the sort of I dare you to cross it line. You cross it, I'm going to smack your hand, or worse. And that's the line that you got to remember. The other thing, and frankly here it didn't matter whether the officer wore a blue or gray uniform, it's Napoleonic warfare. War is a game of chess. And in chess to win, you capture the king, so by God, you got to get to that R down there, that Richmond. And the visits, of course, were the first two, one in December of 1862, the next one 4.5 months later, to the west of Fredericksburg. And then, of course, there's a break. But the overland campaign began, and when I come back later, we're going to get, in 1 month, the wilderness, Spotsylvania, North Anna River. I mean, just boom, boom, boom. And that's what we're going to try to get across to you, and what your guys were involved in. Now, what I've done is try to go, and in January, it's easier. There are no leaves on many of the trees. So I went and took a few newer photographs to give some visuals, and that gives us better views. The thing that's also happening around this time is that the Army of the Potomac starts going through command changes. I mean, they've been doing it. McClellan wasn't, and was for Antietam, and by November, Lincoln had had it. So he trades McClellan for Ambrose Burnside. McClellan brought the army 45 miles northwest of Fredericksburg to a place called Warrenton. And Burnside's plan brought them straight down what's called still today the Warrenton Turnpike to Fredericksburg. Across the Rappahannock River from Fredericksburg is a village called Falmouth. And that's what you're going to see on letters, orders, reports in that period. It'll say Falmouth, not Fredericksburg. But that set us up, and Lincoln says to Burnside, give me a plan. And here's the plan. Well, I'm going to get to opposite Fredericksburg, cross the river, use the railroad to supply me as I go around Robert E. Lee's army. Take Richmond. By God, take Richmond. Do it now, says Lincoln. By November 13th, Burnside had troops opposite Fredericksburg. November 13th. Now the problem is at Fredericksburg there's a river. There were 3 bridges at Fredericksburg that the Confederates burned in February of '62. So you got to have a way to cross. Pontoon bridging was not developed here. Caesar used floating bridges to cross the Rhine back in the day. But the bridges weren't at Fredericksburg. they were up the Potomac River above Washington at a place called Antietam Creek. They were still there. And eventually, they were floated down the Potomac, brought overland to Fredericksburg, but guess what? That took until December 6th. November 13th to December 6th, your guys were encamped in Stafford County, Virginia, near Falmouth. Training, marching, drilling. How are we going to do it? And finally, you have to understand that Fredericksburg as a battle had two phases. One, you had to get across the river, and that's the river going diagonally down across the map. They had 3 crossing sites, which you see as small bridges here, here, and your guys were at the lower one, the third one. But that took a whole day. And because they were crossing into a city, the upper places had buildings the guys could hide behind, shoot at the engineers building the bridges. Oh, and by the way, Burnside gets so mad, he says, blast those riflemen out of there. 146 guns are fired on Fredericksburg, which basically looked like yesterday's cheese toast. London after the Blitz. But what that gave these guys was to move a few rocks and a way to rest that rifle and shoot those engineers. So it took all day. They then took a day to decide what to do, giving the Confederates on this 6-mile ridge, see this going all the way down here, another day to dig in. So the second phase of the battle begins in 2 locations, one up in the city, but the one that interests you is where your guys were, the lower end. And that's what I'm going to concentrate on.